Frames coming to you again with Foundation of Civilization and our changing world. And what's been happening around the world this week? Well, it's May 24th, the Saturday, and that I am recording this. And how is the rest of the world reacting to China's negotiations on trade with the USA? What did the world learn from the India-Pakistan campaign, as short-lived as it was? How are the financial markets reacting to Congress passing another debt-busting budget? Well, let me give you a rundown of with my weekly video here, and it is, like I said, May 24th, 2025, and I'd like to start off by looking at how the markets are going, and the foundation of most markets today is oil. West Texas Intermediate crude ended the week at $61.53. Brent, North Sea, $65.15, and OPEC ended at $65.60. Gold ended the week up a little bit this week at $3,357.40. Silver followed it up also at $33.49. And in a measure of how the markets are doing, trade is going, the Baltic Dry Goods Index ended the week at $1,341. The military naval deployments, ISR aircraft continue to conduct operations along the southern U.S. border and along the Mexican border. They are also continuing to surveil western U.S. mountains. At Diego Garcia, as I mentioned, for several weeks we had a bunch of B-2s on the island, and they have been replaced by 4 B-52s. Those bombers have also been joined by a number of F-15s, probably to provide some air support and defense in that area. Of the 293 naval ships, 101 are deployed, 66 are underway. The USS George Washington is in Yokosuka, Japan. USS America finally departed Sasebo, Japan, went out to sea. No word on exactly where it is operating at the moment. Carl Vinson is operating in the Arabian Sea. USS Abraham Lincoln was in San Diego at last report. The Truman has finally departed the operational area, and it has entered the Mediterranean Sea after transiting the Suez Canal. The USS Nimitz transited the Singapore Straits on Saturday, which would have been about a week ago. It was the 24th, so it would have been the 17th. The Ronald Reagan is away from its home port of Bremerton, Washington. Tripoli is at its home port in San Diego. The Wasp returned to Norfolk on Monday. The USS Iwo Jima, I take that back. USS Wasp would have returned probably a week ago to Norfolk. The Iwo Jima is operating off the U.S. East Coast. The Gerald R. Ford looks like it departed Norfolk on May 5th, and the USS H.W. Bush conducted a family day cruise last Saturday, again the 17th. In Europe, the European markets, the DAX ended the week at 23,629.58. The FTSE at 8,717.97. The CAC 40 at 7,734.40. The IBEX ended at 14,104.10. With the Russia-Ukraine war continuing, well, we're beyond our second year now, or we are approaching I guess our third year now. Their talks pretty much absolutely broke down in Turkey last week. The discussions lasted about 2 hours, and both delegations departed without making any concessions. Apparently, somewhere or another, they were able to discuss and work out a prisoner swap. Now, something interesting did happen during these talks, as Russia, before departing those talks, Russia is demanding a buffer zone between Ukraine and Russia. While the Ukrainians demanded all the Russian forces to depart the 4 oblasts that they currently occupy, Russia refused and issued a counter threat saying soon they will demand that they depart from 8 oblasts. And it looks like Russia is trying to make good on that, on the threat of invading other oblasts so they can maintain that buffer zone. They are maintain so they can establish a buffer zone. So it looks like we've got more trouble ahead for the Ukraine-Russia war. And even as we were trying to establish some kind of ceasefire or peace talks, Russia launched its largest drone attack to date this past week. In response, Ukraine's allies hit Russia with new sanctions after the U.S. president called the Russian president, and there was little progress. In Europe, the economic forecast for this year for 20 countries that use euro currency was cut to 0.9% from the previous forecast in November of 1.3%. The European Union's Executive Commission said Monday in its regular spring forecast. The forecast for 2026 was also cut from 1.4 to 1.6%. And much of this is because of the tariff war, or discussions, negotiations that are going on with the United States. The new draft rules, the EU is weighing whether to deport migrants to countries that have no obvious connection to these migrants. They've established some new draft rules which have to be endorsed by the EU nations and the EU Parliament before they are enforced. These rules were unveiled as a number of countries, including Britain and Italy, seek to set up return hubs, quote, return hubs in third countries where rejected asylum seekers can be held until they can be deported. It seems that they are having struggles with immigrants from third world countries as well. Asia and the markets in Asia, the Nikkei ended the week at 37,160.47. The SSE index ended at 3,348.37. Hang Seng ended at 23,601.26. The Sensex, BSE Sensex, ended at 81,721.03. And the Nifty 50 ended the week at 24,853.15. How did the world react to the new tariffs imposed by the USA? Especially on China. The Europeans seems to have liked them so much that they imposed their own tariffs. People have started looking at China and saying, hey, you're not quite following the rules that we agreed to. And so their changes are coming. On April 28th, 2025, the EU imposed new tariffs on China. And I'm quoting from an article from Registration China. The EU announced anti-subsidy duties ranging from 20.6% to 66.7% on Chinese imported aerial work platforms. Investigations found that Chinese manufacturers benefited from government subsidies, low interest financing, and raw material support. They were selling, because of the support, they were selling the products at prices approximately 20% lower than the EU market average. And the conflict between India and Pakistan seems to have eased, thank goodness. Despite some sporadic attacks by individual units, no large-scale attacks have been conducted by either military. However, in the follow-up to that conflict, a school bus was bombed, 53 people were injured, and 8 people have died so far. Pakistan blamed rebels supported by India, but no group has claimed responsibility. And after reviewing the conflict between the Pakistan and Indian militaries, other militaries around the world are evaluating the effectiveness of Chinese military equipment. Aircraft like the J-10C seem to have availed itself well in the conflict, and because of its lower asking price, the Chinese are looking to increase or looking to sell it to more countries around the world. The United States and Philippines conducted drills. The military's conducted drills in waters adjacent to the China-claimed South China Sea. Australia, their central bank decided to reduce the benchmark interest rate to 3.85%. This is the second cut for this year. North Korea. North Korea is discovering that shipbuilding is not easy. Even launching any ship that they build can be difficult, as they launched their latest destroyer this past week. It rolled over and caused severe damage to the ship. And I'm quoting now the AP article. Quote, according to the North Korean account, the destroyer was damaged when a transport cradle on the ship's stern detached early during a launch ceremony at the northeastern port of Chongjin on Wednesday. Moon Kyun-sik, a Navy expert who teaches at Seoul's Hanyang University, said North Korean workers are probably not familiar with launching a 5,000-ton class warship, which is a few times heavier than its existing main Navy ships. Observers say North Korea tried to launch the destroyer sideways, a method that it has never used for warships, although it has previously employed it with big cargo and passenger ships. Compared to those non-military vessels, Lee said it would be more difficult to maintain balance with the destroyer because it's equipped with heavy weapons systems. He suspected North Korean scientists and officials likely did not factor that in, unquote. In what should be a warning to any nation with debt exceeding its economic output, Japan had to raise its interest rates on its bonds during its last sale, which this will cost the Japanese government much more money to service its debt. U.S. Congress actions this week show that they haven't learned anything. In the Middle East, talks continue between the United States and Iran. There seems to be very little progress. Israel has finally let in limited aid to Gaza. This is after 3 months of blocking aid to the small area. Israel continues to, as they are letting in aid, they are also still conducting operations. And during the latest round of operations, 60 people were killed. An estimated 60 people were killed by Israeli strikes. In Africa, its youngest leader is finding support among many young Africans. And I'm quoting from, again, AP. Following this, the African nation that he leads is Burkina Faso, and I am talking about Ibrahim Traore. And I apologize if I got his name wrong, but that's as I understand how it's pronounced. Following the 2022 coup that brought him to power, Traore promised to end the country's decades-long deadly security crisis and leverage its rich mineral resources to the benefit of its 24 million citizens. Alongside the coup-hit nations of Niger and Mali, Burkina Faso has since severed ties with regional blocs of ECOWAS. Criticized by many young Africans as representing the interest of leaders and not the citizens. Those are the regional bloc of ECOWAS. As well as long-standing Western allies such as France, whose military provided security support to the government for many years to help its security crisis, unquote. ECOWAS is the economic community of West African states, and its members include Benin, Cabo Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Togo. It used to include Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Those three countries have withdrawn, and their support has, with their withdrawal and loss of support, it calls into question the sustainability of the rest of the union. Now, unfortunately, Mr. Traore's, or President Traore's, popularity and support have not translated into peace and security for his country yet. Not all of that is his fault, of course, but he does hold a lot of responsibility for it. The number of displaced people since he took office have actually doubled under his watch, and the number of people who are getting killed under his watch, both by government and by terrorist organizations, has also increased. So there's still a long way to go, but a lot of young Africans are providing a lot of support for him. Hopefully he does not abuse it, as we've seen other African leaders do. A deal has been struck that will transfer sovereignty of the Chagos Islands from the UK to Mauritius, although Britain will retain control of the largest of the chain of islands, Diego Garcia, which host a strategically important American naval and bomber base. Nigeria is finding that it has a food security problem as water for crops is getting harder and harder to find. This from AP News. At the Kloof mine near Johannesburg, South Africa, 260 miners have been trapped underground and a rescue effort is underway to free them. In Somalia, at the capital, an attack occurred, killing 13 people. This was at a military recruitment center. In the Americas, the Dow Jones Industrial Average ended the week at 41,603.07. The S&P ended at 5,802.82, and the Nasdaq ended at 18,737.21. In Mexico, there was an attack. Gunmen killed 7 people, and some of them were children. This was in central Mexico. The attack in Guanajuato occurred around 2 a.m. This was Monday morning in the plaza of the city of San Felipe. Local police found 7 bodies, all of them male. It is a cartel-related violence. The cartel was trying to send a message to, I guess, to the people of the city, of the town. Investigators are trying to understand why a 25-year-old Edward Bartkus detonated a powerful car bomb outside of a fertility clinic in Palm Springs. 4 people were injured, and the bomber was killed. In Washington, D.C., 2 staffers of the Israeli embassy were shot and killed as they departed the building by Elias Rodriguez. The suspect was originally from Chicago. He was a student that has been radicalized at the University of Illinois. Now, in a fight with higher education, the U.S. president has attempted to stem the tide of radicalization of students like the one who killed the 2 Israeli embassy staffers. The U.S. administration has terminated all visas for foreign students at Harvard University. Since then, a judge has blocked his efforts, but we'll see how that turns out. In another effort, a different effort, that is as big as Star Wars, or about as big a leap as Star Wars was under late President Ronald Reagan, the current U.S. president is pushing a missile defense system he is calling the Golden Dome. It is estimated to cost $175 billion over 3 years. And a new round of tariffs are being threatened for the EU, with a 50% rate for them and possibly a 25% rate on the electronics maker Apple. It was recently discovered that a hotline between the Pentagon and the FAA hasn't worked since 2022, which makes you wonder if that collision between a helicopter and a passenger aircraft could have been avoided if something like that had worked. Now, not to be outdone this week by the revelations at the FAA, tornadoes hit St. Louis, Missouri, and it was discovered that the tornado warning system failed. After some investigation, it was found out that the system has not been tested in years, maybe since it was installed in 1999. The official that was in charge of it was relieved of their job. This week, the former U.S. president was diagnosed with cancer. It's been noted by those in the know that he's had cancer for many years. And it was covered up by his administration, just like the rest of Joe's medical issues. Now, this leads me to question, who was really in charge of the USA under his presidency, under the last presidency? Add to this the revelations about some staffer using an auto pen to sign legislation, and we have a question the legitimacy of every signature he made. The pardons, the spending bills, the student loan repayment, all of it could be illegitimate. Now, interestingly enough, also, the Democrat senator from Massachusetts, one of the Democrat senators from Massachusetts, they have two of them. He was a socialist for the longest time. In an interview on a podcast, he was challenged, and he agreed that the Democrat Party is a threat to democracy. It was noted that during the 2016 election, he made a deal to end his primary race and let another rival, first female to run for the Democrat Party, for her to take the lead. And then again in 2020, he set aside his campaign to let the last president win. The question that arises in my mind is, how does this serve democracy if a party leaders decide who is going to run rather than the people? It goes back to also, I won't bring up his name, but the Democrats had a challenge with one of their vice presidents recently who has been relieved of his position. Young man, very vocal. You probably know who I'm talking about. The Congress, the House, passed a budget this week. Again, budget busting. Completely oblivious to all of the highlights of the president's Doge committee. Ignoring the $500 billion a year going to programs that are no longer authorized. They passed a budget that's even bigger than before. Fortunately, there's no tax on tips or overtime. The hope is that the bill will spur economic growth of about 3% rather than the 1.8% that we've seen lately. And I actually think that that's probably fudged a little. Probably fudged a lot. My guess is that the growth has been zero or negative for a while, but the prognosticators will not tell you that. In response, Moody's downgraded U.S. debt. U.S. debt has been downgraded by most of the rating agencies for several years now. They are just the last ratings agency to downgrade the U.S. debt. And I find it rather interesting because I remember back in 2007, 8, they wouldn't downgrade anybody or anything. They wanted to shine people on to make them think that the U.S. economy was tremendous and there were no problems. And so they didn't bother downgrading any company, even as Bear Stearns was running headlong into trouble. Now, we are going to find out where the real trouble is. And that is going to be when investors, are investors going to agree to buy this debt or not? We have seen, and Japan has seen recently, that not everybody's happy to be buying their debt. to buy, even if the country is a decent country and people have a lot of faith in it. The bond market has been showing some signs of instability, and obviously it has good cause to be cautious of the stability. The alternative problem for investors is, where do they go to get such good opportunities? China is a mess. Europe is aging. India is still developing. Russia has its sanctions. No other place in the world offers the opportunity that the United States does. As governments continues its reckless spending, investors are getting much more nervous and demanding higher returns to justify the risk that they are taking. It is going to cost the government more money to service the debt that we have been running. And I'm gonna try to dig into some of the numbers here and show that there's just no way that any of this can happen without spurring more inflation. That's what I think we're going to see happen. Is they're going to pass the budget, they're going to send out the bonds, there are going to be tons of bonds that are not bought, so they print money for the government to buy the bonds, and that money printing is going to spur inflation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I have for you this week. I hope that you found it informative. I also hope that you will like, share, and subscribe. That really helps me with this habit of mine of putting out videos on YouTube and hopefully informing people about what's going on around the world, what's really going on around the world. I try to find the things that are most important and dig beyond the surface and show you how it is going to end up affecting you. And I hope that you guys find it useful. If you do, please support me. If you don't, please leave me a criticism in the comments. And if you like it, you can comment also, please. I hope that you guys are doing well and that your families are doing well. Please please hug them. Much love to everybody, and hope that you guys will keep looking ahead and let me help you with that journey. And I look forward to talking to you guys again very soon. I've got lots of things lined up for us, for all of us, in the near future. Thanks again, and I will talk to you guys very shortly. Thanks. Bye.